Hello, ladies. I'm very honored that you came to listen today, and I hope you get a few things done while I talk about life in general, about getting ready for the home and making it into a beautiful place. And so today, I wanted to remind you that you can go to work. There's nothing really here to see. I will be showing a few more things, but I'll let you know. But I wanted to share with you my new apron, which I ordered from Hobby Lobby. It was such a delight to get that package. However, I'm wondering who's packing these things. I mean, huge boxes with tons of brown paper stuffing in it for a little tiny package like this. I'm just thinking they're not going to fare very well. The postage for that, and also the amount of waste that must be. So I'm going to show you this apron, which I got. They had a sale on their spring shop. I think they're still having it online, and I really love ordering things. I do kind of miss seeing it, but so far the things that I have ordered have been perfect. So I wanted to show you this new apron, and so it looks like I can probably get out the dress form later on and include that on the post. Now, I don't have any comments on the channel, so you'll have to go to the post, for which I provided a link, and see what else is on there. And there'll be a picture of this. And I really like their aprons because they are of thicker fabric. I have tried to make my own, but they just don't protect as well as these. So I'm just going to take this off now, and I'm going to show you my teacup because it goes with everything. And this is the teacup that I chose, sent by the mysterious lady who sent me a set of 6 from Brew to a Tea. They have just gone with so much of my fabric. I've even got one that I'm saving to make something to go with, and I really like the bowl shape of these. Now, yesterday on my speech, I talked to you about the problem of stress in your life and how it can deteriorate your health. And there's plenty of evidence from that, just from your own life. You don't even have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. You don't even have to be a therapist to figure it out. But if you've got any health problems, and you get under a little stress, you can feel it worse, can't you? And even children can get sick if there's a lot of stress in the home. And so today I want to talk a little bit more about that and encourage you in ways that you can focus on something wonderful and sweet at home and eliminate a lot of that stress. And a lot of our stress comes from our thinking, and a lot of our thinking comes from things we hear or see or read. You remember years ago, some of you who are elderly, we used to go to these vacation Bible schools, and one of the songs we sang, it's too bad it's taking me so long to connect this and figure it out, and it was, be careful, little ears, what you hear. And we always thought, well, it just meant, be careful not to get around foul language or gossip. But now we're hearing a lot of fear from the media and from people who have been listening to the media. You might have shut it all off, but somebody's going to text you, somebody's going to tell you. And that is where we're getting a lot of our stress. And so what we want to do to create less stress for ourselves, it's natural to have some stress. We do have to have some. I know that this is good weather today, so I have a little bit of tension thinking I want to get all that laundry out on the line before it rains again. That's just the kind of tension that we should have. And then also, maybe the farmer is coming home from his field, and the wife sees him afar off, and she thinks, oh, the dinner's not quite ready. I better get this ready. I better get the table set before he comes in. And there's a little bit of tension and stress there, but that's natural because you can control it and you can do something about it. And once you have taken care of it, then it's gone. But this kind of stress that's coming on is really, really deteriorating people's health. But hopefully, if you're home and if you're a homemaker, you can eliminate some of it, because you can control a lot more, and you can create what you need in the home. How would you like to go on a wonderful vacation, get away from all the stress? Well, These days, if you go on a vacation trying to get away from the stress, you're greeted with obnoxious music and also people that aren't very polite or that don't let you get a lot of rest because of the noise they make. And that could be your home too, I suppose. But what you can control is that you can create what you need in your life at home. I don't know if you realize how much power you have for that beautiful vacation, like I think they call it holiday in other countries. And by the way, I want to say hello to the lady from Flanders who left a comment, and also there's a lady from Uzbekistan I noticed who had written to me, and I wanted to thank you all. I'm just amazed at your comprehension of the English language and especially our accent here in the U.S., and to be able to comprehend enough to come and listen and do your housework while you're listening. So, I mean, I'm just complimented by the fact that you came. So, what we want to do today is improve our life at home and make it our own without any interference from out there or from coming into our home. You know, I heard somebody say we aren't being threatened by anything from without. We're threatened by something from within. It's when we need to settle down at home and eliminate things that we're doing that don't have anything to do with making life better for yourself at home. And so this is a hands-on occupation. Now today I have some things I wanted to talk about concerning things I've already talked about before, and I brought in some of the books that I had mentioned. You don't have to stop and look, but you can keep doing the things that you need to do. One of the things that you can do to get eliminate some of the stress, there will naturally, like I said, be some stress. For example, people used to have an uneasy night. They couldn't sleep at night because they had a big decision to make, or they had made a decision that they regretted, so they'd have an uneasy night. That's natural stress that we need to pay attention to. But now we're so bombarded with it that it's hard to tell what we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to ignore. And people may be trying to drown it out with other things that maybe aren't so good for them. So I have found a couple of things that helped me. Maybe it would help you, but everybody's different. One is your thinking. If you can control your thinking instead of letting the outside thinking come in, if you can control it. And one way that I have found that really, really helps is to focus on something in the home, such as cleaning out a shelf, cleaning some books and lining them up according to color or subject, cleaning out how long has it been since you've cleaned out the drawers in the kitchen, or something that needs, there's always something, isn't there? I'm a sewer, and so my sewing always needs to be sorted out after a project. Need to wind up all the threads and put away the pins and everything else, and these things really do settle your mind. You know, one of the reasons that people like to have a job is because it makes them focus on something. It gives them a cause. It gives them something to go to do, so that they don't just meander around their home without any kind of purpose. Well, see, now that you're home, and I'm speaking as a seasoned homemaker, you have to learn to control yourself. And this is a big challenge, because if you've been at work, your schedule is controlled, your diary is controlled, and your vacations are, everything that you do is controlled by whatever work that you had. So at home now you have to learn to have control over your life and over your home. And so you can do it in a different way. You can say, well, what didn't I like about the way the world controls me? What don't I like about the schedule? And I have been home since July the 4th last year, when I decided I wasn't going to participate in the shenanigans of the state and the world, and recently went out to see what it was like, because we're supposedly free to go now, and I wasn't attracted by it. I'd had a whole year at home to concentrate, and I found it very very unfulfilling and dull. And but I did bring home a teacup, and that was helpful. But I found that all that year I got a chance to see what it would be like to be home. Now, many of you consider yourselves locked up or locked down, but what an opportunity that is to put yourself on a course and to learn to think again. Stay away from the media and read something. Lately, I have been reading a lot online and in books about different countries and cultures and languages, which I find quite fascinating. And so I have had those things on my mind, and they're not demanding and they're not stressful, but yet they have some value. And I also wanted to tell you that you can control something like, maybe you think your house is out of control. That's one reason I don't come here as often as I want to, is my house is not in the shape I want it to be, and I'm thinking, well, I'll come and talk after I've got this room done or this room done. But I've made a new schedule where I come anyway, or I come first before I fix it up. And so I want to motivate you to do what you would like to do first, and then get down to the things that you have to do so that you have time. I have noticed if I wait till I get all the things done that I have to do, by that time I'm exhausted. There's no time to do anything I'd like to do. And that is one reason why at the end of the day, if you can get it cleaned up well enough or organized well enough, that people can function while you go do something in the morning that's for you. And so one of the things that I have been doing is listening. I have talked to you before in previous videos about the importance of hearing and how the ears engage the mind, and how important it is to have human voices, real human voices talking to you, if you possibly can, and how the hearing is so important for the functional mind. And you can look a lot of this up with real research online, and also on YouTube. There are doctors and therapists that talk about it, and I have tried to, one of my children is taking an online course, and he says that he's not doing as well as he used to because he likes to hear. He's an audio learner. He likes to hear. So I said to him, why don't you take when it comes up online and you've got to do, he says there's a lot of reading. Read it aloud. Just read a sentence aloud and be the teacher. And then answer whatever it is you have to answer and be the student. So be self-taught. And in fact, he was the oldest, and he was self-taught in homeschool because I had other children at home and other things to do, other responsibilities in the house. So I couldn't stand over him all the time and just teach. So I taught him how to be self-taught, how to teach himself. And so you can do that too. And I will tell you one reason why I like to homeschool you is if you're homeschooled, it is so invigorating and it is so beautiful and it is so delightful that it gives you life. And that's the way learning should be. It should make you feel life. Instead of coming home off the bus after school, you shouldn't be just exhausted and wiped out and the best learning moments of your day gone with nothing that's important. I heard a boy say the other day whose grandparents are helping to homeschool him, but because his mother has other children, younger children, and he was looking at some of his public school materials, and he said, why do I have to learn this anyway? Because it didn't have any meaning to him. So my son said to me, yes, you're right. The words have to have meaning to me. They have to have life to me, or I don't learn as well. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. And so do what you can at home and to control your thinking. And your thinking is going to control a lot of your health because you're going to be open to new information and learning. And the other thing was pay attention to your exercise and your nutrition. You have to study all this out, read a little bit about it. One size doesn't fit all in education. One size doesn't fit all in nutrition. Some of us are allergic to certain foods. One size does not fit all in exercise either. So just try to make a course that is suitable for you. Make it tailor-made for you. I'll talk to you more about that. I've been talking about courses lately. Make a course for yourself at home. And so one thing you can control is your appearance, and that's the first thing that I try to tell you to do. You're probably getting tired of hearing it. You all know, especially if you're elderly, you already know you're supposed to get up and get a shower and take care of yourself and try to be as presentable as possible, as though what you were doing is very, very important. I think you should dress up for your home as well as you can. Now, I make a lot of my clothes. This is cotton. It came from Hobby Lobby, something else that I had ordered, and I've made several garments like this just for the home. They're just so wash and wear and easy to wear, and if it gets too hot, they're cool. If it gets too cold, they're warm, and they're a natural fiber. So I think that you should dress as well as you can for the home. If you have not done that, maybe you could just turn off your device and go and get ready and look yourself in the face in the mirror and fix yourself up as best you can. And so that you can control your appearance. That's something you can control a little bit more. Now, you might not be able, maybe you're struggling with a few extra pounds, or not a few extra pounds, a lot of extra weight, but you don't have, you can't control it right now. It can't be fixed right now, but you can fix your hair. You can put on a clean shirt. You can fix yourself up as well as you can, and put on a little pleasant scent. Somebody made me some out of orange oil and distilled water or something in a little spray bottle. I really like that. And you can take care of yourself. So that is something you can control. And the second thing that you can control is your house. You really can get your dishes washed. You really can sanitize your house. You can shine the windows and the mirrors, and you can grow something. Those are things that you can control. You can control your house. You cannot control what the world is doing. And as we get into discussing more exciting things to do, I want to remind you, please don't wait till the world settles down before you plan your future, before you do anything to improve yourself. Don't wait till it all settles down. Don't say, well, when this is all over, I'm going to learn to do this, or I'm going to start doing this, or I'm going to sew a new dress, or I'm going to, because you can't depend on them. And even the Lord in the Bible talks about that isn't it somewhere in the Psalms where David said, I will not put my confidence in princes. In other words, royalty, earthly royalty. I will not put my confidence in that. Blessed is the man whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and the man that does not put his confidence in princes. And you cannot do that, because if you wait for them to settle down, look, some of us who are elderly know they don't. They just get worse and worse, and just about the time you think that it can't get any worse, it will. And when they've figured out that you're no longer frightened by something, they invent something else, and so we can see what they're doing. And so in a way, they are in control of our thoughts and of our mind and of our happiness. Remember, the Declaration of Independence in the U.S. says that we are endowed by our Creator with certain alienable rights, meaning built-in, given by God, and that we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, happiness in the Bible, if you read about it, it's not a pursuit of pleasure as much as it is good things that eventually create happiness. It might be a little hard at first to plow your land and build your log cabin, but after that hardship, the happiness comes. And also there's a lot of happiness in enduring things. And so we have a right to all that according to God. And so don't wait till the world settles down before you clean your house, before you paint your house, before you buy that new house or build it. Don't wait till everything settles down. Because what I've noticed is if you wait for the world to settle down, everything that you're waiting for, your home will deteriorate and you'll deteriorate, but don't do that. You can live above it. Just live above it and determine to put yourself on a course of life. I think you should put yourself on a course of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and make yourself a course. I'll talk to you more about that later. So you can control the stress by your thinking. And when you put yourself on a course, and let's say you got a book like this one that I've been talking about lately, Cottage Core, where all she did was divide it into seasons and then show activities for every season, all the way from taking walks to making things to hold your cup with, and roasting chestnuts outside, and then the summer activities, and just all the different things. You could make a book like this for yourself, just a little scrapbook, and do that for yourself, and put yourself on a course of things that you'd like to do. And this changes your life, because it's not always the same thing. You're not always going to be washing dishes, because those will get dirty again. You wash them again. You always need some kind of course that you're on. And so I have emphasized that. Hope that I can make that more clear. Now, I have a little book that I made, and it's just made out of old scrap paper. All of us have these. When scrap paper was a big deal, and we had big tablets of it, and this was from the cover that showed the little pieces at the bottom of what was inside. So I made a cover out of it, out of the cover of the scrapbook pad, and cut a few pieces of blank paper and put it inside. And this is going to be, see, I would get discouraged if I have a great big book, a great big scrapbook to write things. I get very discouraged, and then I'd want to tear some pages out because they weren't quite written well. But these little books, I can get through them in a season, like a week or so, or maybe two. This is my hearing book. So I decided this, the first thing in the morning I hear a train. It doesn't have a shrieking whistle. It has more of a low sound. I'm not quite sure what kind of sound that is, but as you know, we had a train trip here at my house, and it was called the Royal, and the descendants came to spend a week on this train, and I had looked up all the menus from the Royal Scotsman and tried to reproduce it all, but train whistles never came. I ordered some train whistles that are usually found in touristy type shops near the trains, and I never did get them. They said they had run out of them. So I made a book to keep track of when the train whistle sounds, because it's not always the same time, and there's one in the morning and there's one in the evening. And so I decided I would make a hearing book, because there are other sounds that I want to be more aware of. And I was putting the sprinkler under a tree over there just to get the grass green around it, and noticed that it was hitting the leaves and the branches and then dripping down again. So I was thinking about what a sound that was, and how important sound is to you, and how important hearing is to you. And that's why the voices of your loved ones and your people are so important. I watched some of these videos about people in Appalachia or other places where they talk about their parents and grandparents, and what they sounded like and what their sayings were. And when you listen to your descendants, or your father or your mother or your children, you're not just hearing their voice. You're hearing the voice of their ancestors. And you're hearing the voice of your mother and your father in your children. I noticed that, when my grandchildren are talking, I'm thinking, which grandparent sounded like that? Or even my own children. When I hear them, they remind me of my father or my mother. And my brothers and sister, they have voices too. And so I'm listening to that. So this is my little listening book. I'll write down something in it, maybe draw a few pictures, and you can make your own courses and your own books. If you're a homemaker and you're busy at home, you don't want something big and great big that you have to fill out. You could get discouraged. So I have been hearing these trains. I guess we are on what they used to call the wrong side of the tracks, which means you were so close to the tracks that you could hear these trains. So we're out here on the wrong side of the tracks. It's not like the wealthy neighborhoods would not have been built too close to these trains. Now, there's a lot less stress in a clean house. So as I go into the part where the homemaking part and the house cleaning part, you can always find things on the web that show you how to clean. I don't need to talk to you about that because your house is probably unique in its own way. You've got your own schedule and your own way of doing things. But if you'll notice, there is also, this is one way you can control the stress in your life. Stress coming from the word distress, I imagine it just means a kind of a tension that goes, a tension, not attention, a tension that wells up in your body and your back and your mind that goes with pressure to do something. And this kind of pressure is in the home. You can notice that there's less stress when your house is orderly, when everyone's had their morning ritual, their tea, their breakfast, whatever. I noticed myself that there was a lot less, I guess, discomfort, and I noticed more contentment in my family when they woke up in the morning and it wasn't a mess to wake up to, because then they have to figure out how to navigate through that and get dressed and start getting on their day. So I think it's really important to control the home as far as homemaking and the clutter if you can. I've had to just do it spot by spot and not worry about trying to get it all. When I was first married, I could go through the house and get it all cleaned up in one day. And not only that, but I could go through the drawers, refold the sweaters and the closet and look at everything. But as time has gone by and the demands of my time have gotten bigger, I haven't been able to do that. But at least I'm thinking about it. That takes away some of the stress. If your house is not like you'd like it, but you're thinking about it and you're aware of it and you're conscious of it, that's a good thing. That's a good sign. You're on your way. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about courses, because I have this book that I told you about, and it was called The American Girl's Handy Book. Now, you probably have one in your country that's from this is written in the 1800s, and it was all the activities for girls. There was one for a boy, too. It was all the things that they could do, and it too was divided up into seasons. It was the original cottagecore book. And I have these markers here because they had how to make a fan, and they had the pattern in there that you could trace around and copy. And you made all these pieces, and you put a hole in the bottom, and you put them all together and tied a woven ribbon through it, and you could actually, it would make a fan. And I believe I still have the original fan that my daughter made when she was a young girl from this. And so what you would do is, some of these would not be appropriate for today. But I noticed that in the winter, they had a lot of indoor activities, and that the children could learn to make a little indoor canopy house type of thing, in which they would put on a play or just reenact something. And if you'll remember, I believe it was the 1995 Little Women, Louisa May Alcott, that was so colorful and probably more accurate to the stories. But they had, up in the attic, these sisters had created a drama theater, and it was so charming and so very, very, I guess, accurate to the time from some of the books that I have read. But you can make up your own. You can make up your own things for a season, and not all of it were just things to do. Sometimes things to do can become more burdensome and more stressful, but they weren't all things to do. They were things to not so many things, but just ideas. And even had a little art course, how to paint a picture and how to press a flower. And I found the flower presses of the 80s. When I first found this book was in the 1980s, and it had been reprinted, so it looks brand new, but it's been reproduction. And they was talking about the use of pressed flowers, dried flowers, and they would paste them on paper and make stationery out of them. And they would also put them on pictures to hang on the wall. And there was just such a beautiful way of using them. But the flower presses of the day I found I'd have to order one or make one, and it was a lot of trouble. You had to go to the hardware store and get so much stuff, and then you had to have the right kind of corrugated cardboard, and then you had to have a blotter paper, and you had to have wood on each side, and they would press these flowers in, and it wasn't handy to get one. And I have challenged my descendants to make flower presses out of paper bags, and a stack of paper bags, and how to press them and use paper clips or brads and how to make them. But you can make a course for yourself and follow it besides your homemaking, or including your homemaking. There's a lot of things we can do ourselves. I've mentioned writing a book. Wouldn't you like to use this time, instead of worrying, instead of listening to the news and being under stress, is write a little book. Now, you don't have to have it published by a publisher. You can go through a printer. You can go through self-publishing online, where you go into their site and they say get started, and you start typing away, and then you bring in your pictures from your pictures, and they say are you ready to publish, and then you can have one sent to you, and you look at it and see where it needs to be corrected, and you can go back into their program, and you see you don't have to have it approved by a publisher, and it doesn't have to be on some bestseller list. You just make up your own bestseller list and you make up your own celebrity status. And so you can do your own. I prefer to write little books like this for my kids, just handwritten books. It's a lot of trouble and work and a lot of stress to write a book. But there are people online that do it. And if you'll look down on my blog roll, there are several women who have published their own books and their ebooks, and you can print them out yourself. And so that's just the way to go now. Take advantage of the internet and the web, and do some self-publishing. You can do your own thing. And wouldn't you like to be able to do some art or something like that in place of, how about every time you start to worry or feel stressed, go do something really useful that is lasting? Don't you wish that your children had left you more of their handicrafts that they had done, so that you could, after a while, the interior decor does not have the meaning to you as your children's own artwork? Don't you wish they had done more for you? My children did some quilting. My daughter made the quilt that's right behind me, and those things, I prefer them. So do something useful for the time. Mr. S used to go away quite a bit, and so when we were first married, when he was gone, he was in a business that where he had to take trips, and while he was gone, I would make a little cushion, just a little embroidered cushion. I have one with the hummingbird on it, and I had one with strawberries on it, and I had quite a collection of cushions, so that when he went away, I marked that time with something useful. You can do that too, that you substitute something worthwhile for the worry and for the stress. You start feeling stressed, go and find something to do that you're looking forward to, that gives you good stress, good pleasure. So one of the things that I really enjoyed about reenacting, we used to go to reenactments, and there were Victorian era reenactments where people would dress up in the costumes, and that was a big business, is these costumes, and go and participate in a day or a couple of hours event somewhere that someone else had put on. And we did a lot of that in homeschooling. Some of the homeschool parents liked to do the pioneer reenactments. We feel more akin to that because many of us actually are closer in time proximity to the great-grandparents that we knew, that could still talk about coming over in a covered wagon. And so we would go to these reenactments, we'd wear the costumes, and we'd do some of the activities. We would reenact, we'd eat the food, we would participate in a program maybe that we all got involved in. And so one of the things that I like to bring into my home is this idea of reenactment or imitation. So if you're getting in any way discouraged in the home, and you feel like that you're not getting anywhere, or that it's the same thing, a lot of people have stopped going on holidays or vacations, getting away and getting new scenery. and so they are stuck in their homes and feel like they need to do something different. Well, you can start reenacting. And that's what's enjoyable, is to reenact. That's what I've been doing with my descendants, is we've been reenacting things. We go on different trips, and we do things in the home to free our minds from the burden and responsibilities of the work, and then we can kind of go on a vacation. And so the idea of reenactment is a lot of fun. I met a girl once who was, she's now married, but she told me that her parents were very, not very wealthy and didn't have extra money to do things. So she would pretend that she was a maid for her own house. And she had a way of dressing up and pretending she was the maid and she was taking care of this family. And she said, it just changed the atmosphere of the work, and it just lifted the burden for some reason. I don't know how that would lift the burden, but for her it was, because she was someone else looking from the outside in at this family and taking care of them, and didn't feel the stress as much. So reenactment and imitation are, if people did not think that it was okay to imitate something or reenact something, then the Bible shouldn't have given us so many stories. Because I remember the Sermon on the Mount, and always wondered about that. And one time when we lived in a ranch house out on a ranch in Texas, there was a field that had a little dip in it, and a lake, and then hills on the side of it, and it made a perfect amphitheater. And I used to take my children for walks over there, and I said, now you get down there by the shore, and we'll sit up here on the hill, and you can talk to us and read to us some of the Sermon of the Mount. And it was so nice to reenact that and think about it and try to imagine what the people of the time were like and how they heard that when they were sitting there. So reenactment is a wonderful way to transport your mind into something good. And anyway, that's what we do, isn't it? When we imitate Christ and the teachings of the apostles, is we're reenacting, and we are trying to live it out. And you do it in honor of them. Another thing that will help in reducing stress is to remember you have today. One of the problems with stress is it makes us think that we don't have a future, that we can't do anything. There's no use fixing anything because we might not be here, or there won't be any money. But wasn't it David who said, I have been young and now I'm old, and yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken or begging for bread. And you think about that you have today. When you think about today, you're not forsaken today, are you? Well, you have today, so you can do something today. Don't wait until the world settles down. The news is not going to settle down. That's not their purpose. They are never going to get on the media and say, life is great. Everything's working out, and financially everything's fine, and everybody's well, and we have 100% health in our country. They're not going to do that, because they have to major in fear. And fearful people react in a way that they are trying to get us to react, and maybe not live like we should, and instead buy something that they want us to buy, or buy into something they want us to buy. Now, as far as learning, today I learned something and I put it into action. So every day, ladies, since I'm homeschooling you, I would like you to learn something every day. And I was looking around for ideas, just looking around my house, going through some old books, and found a book. Couldn't even tell you what it is. But it was brilliant, and it was right there in front of my face as to what I could do. But I have these single beds. I have 3 single beds, and one of the suggestions in one of these books to make the single bed more attractive and easier to look after is to get a king-size pillow, because it's the exact width of that bed, and put a king-size pillow on it. it looks so much better. I hadn't even thought of that because I always thought, well, we'll get the regular size pillow for these little beds. And I started putting the king size pillow on the single beds, and then I have a toddler bed, and I put a larger pillow across that too. They're just the right width for it. The look is so much better. And when the bed is made up, it just looks so much better. That's just something that I learned today. What did you learn today? Maybe you could leave a comment over on the post and just tell me something that you learned about life or about the home. I'd like to focus on the home if I could. So you have today, and don't wait. Now, I've spoken to you before about this Fourth McGuffey's Reader, and one of the reasons that I liked it, and it was the Christian School edition, and it had in the front pages of it punctuation marks and articulation. I've read to you before about articulation and elementary sounds. Now, when my children were little and when my grandchildren were little, people would make rude remarks about how they needed to have speech therapy and they needed to go see a doctor about their whatever, and because they weren't able to pronounce everything, and they could not pronounce their R's. My children all sounded like they had an accent from some other country. But you know, as their jaws develop, as their hearing develops, you know, their hearing isn't even fully developed until they're 9 years old. I don't know if you knew that, but they're rushing children at an early age to learn to read and write and speak, and their ears and their eyes are not fully developed. I would say I learned a lot from a book years ago. I'm trying to think of what company produced it, but it was called Better Late Than Early. Have you read that book? You might be able to find it, Better Late Than Early. I'm trying to think it was one of the earliest homeschool courses you could find. And it suggested that you not push your children into early learning because they'll pay for it later on through, remember the poem I'm always reading to you, Hurry the Baby Fast as You Can. Hurry him, worry him, make him a man. And this has the elementary sounds, but it's called the Fourth McGuffey Reader, but it's not fourth grade. It's far beyond that. It's advanced. And when my children finally did, of their own natural development, learn to speak or read, people thought they were 21 years old, thought they sounded like a 21-year-old reading, because they learned, remember the end of that poem, once boys grew at a natural rate. Now we develop a man while you wait. And so we shouldn't be pushing them. So if your child is having speech problems, leave them alone, because if they can hear, it could be partly their hearing too. If they can hear how things sound, then they can imitate it later on. And I used to tell them when they were reading that the way here's how to learn spelling. Spelling, a child will often learn to read before he can spell. And spelling is the way you read it. So when they're writing a letter or they're writing to you or they're writing something down and they spell it wrong, say, wait a minute now, didn't you just read that word, will you give me a kite? Will you lift up my kite into the sky? Is that how you spell that? Look, you just read it in a book. How come you can't write it that way? So you teach them that the way you spell is the way that you've read it. Now, I'm going to read today Susie's composition because, and I think I've read it before to you here, but some of you who are new might enjoy doing this while you fold some clothes or sort out some things in a drawer, go through your sewing. I'm very happy because this morning I slept in till 8, and you know, my sleep has been so crazy, but I've been getting, instead of laying there wrestling, years ago I used to lay there and wrestle with myself saying, I've got to sleep, got to get to sleep, got to get back to sleep because I'm just going to be worn out all day. Well, I've decided to get up anyway and just start the day earlier and get some things done, and then towards the evening, rest a little bit more. And so I began to think about Susie's composition because I'd told you about it before, and I might have even read it to you. And what it is about a girl who wanted to, who had an assignment of writing and didn't know how to choose a subject. And so her mother just told her to go outside. And she couldn't figure out why she was doing that. So I'm going to read it to you today. And this might help you if you decide that you want to do something and make a course for yourself. And in this little book that I've written here, I mean, I haven't written it yet, but I just made a little book for myself. This is a course. This is my hearing course. I'm going to go and record what I hear throughout the day. As you know, they say that a good teacher or a good leader never requires anything of their subjects or their students or the people that they are responsible for that they wouldn't do themselves. And so I'm going to write a little hearing book here, and maybe I can use it later on for someone that needs to learn or to hear. I want to take a course that I would teach, or that I would take a course from someone. So I've often said, if you want to be homeschooled, or you want to homeschool your children or your grandchildren, go and order some kind of curriculum or course in something that you'd like to teach them, and take it yourself first. Don't just sit there and be a teacher without taking it. And in a way, I can see why we felt like we had grown up together, my children and I, because I was learning all these things that they were learning that I never got to learn. It's so different from your own school experience. I would suggest you do it just so you can learn. Okay, Susie's composition. Goodness, this book is falling apart. Susie Smith came home from school one day and had no sooner entered the sitting room than she burst into tears. "What is the matter, my dear child?" said her mother, drawing her daughter to her side and smiling. I love the kindness that goes on in these stories. Many of us, I guess, grew up with impatient parents who would say, "That's enough of that." And we never could figure out how we're supposed to solve problems, because they would just tell you, "We'll just stop that, Anyway, everybody is different. "Oh, Mother, matter enough," sobbed Susie. "All our class must bring in compositions tomorrow morning, and I never ever can write one. We must write 12 lines, and I have written only a few words, after nearly trying all afternoon." How many of you can remember sitting down and you've been given an assignment and how to write it, and you just sat there hour after hour and couldn't think of anything? But that was just a faulty way of teaching, really. You cannot get something from nothing. We'll see how this mother helped her daughter have an experience so that she could write about something. Now, of course, we know if you're teaching your children about experience and then translating it to paper, that it should be good, wholesome experiences, not the kind of experience the world wants you to have. When I was growing up, there were plenty of people ready to tell you, you need to get out in the world and get some experience. But that is not what God teaches. And the home provides so much experience. If you only knew the capacity and the opportunity that's within the home, it's worth so much. "See what work I have made of it." Mrs. Smith took the rumpled, tear-stained paper which Susie held in her hand and glanced at what she had written. In a careful hand she had tried to write upon 3 themes: time, temperance, and industry. "Time is short. We should all improve our time," she wrote. "Temperance is a very useful thing." "We should all be industrious if we wish to do anything in the world." These sentences were all she had written. "Now," said Susie, "I can't think of anything else to write upon these subjects, and I know I shall have to go to school without a composition, for I won't be so mean as to copy one from a book, or to ask you or Papa to write one for me." "That is right, my dear," said her mother. "You will be far happier with a poor composition, if it is your own, than with a fine one written by somebody else. But cheer up. You have not begun to write. You have begun to write upon subjects that you know nothing about. Oh, you have not begun right, she said. You have been trying to write upon subjects that you know nothing about. Run into the garden and play, and I will call you in half an hour. So you see what her mother was doing was sending her outside where her senses could be employed and she could gain some experience. It seemed but a few minutes to Susie before she heard her mother's voice calling her. She went into the house at once, her hands full of sweet flowers and her cheeks rosy with exercise. I can just see her in an armload of sweet peas, just billowing all over. Now, Susie, said her mother, I want you to sit by the window with this nice sheet of paper and a pencil and write something about what you can see. But my composition, Mother, what about my composition? Said Susie. When shall I begin that? Never mind your composition right now, my dear. Do this to please me, and then we will talk about that by and by. Susie thought about her mother's request was a very strange one, but she knew that she always had a good reason for everything she did, so she took the paper and pencil and sat by the window. Do not talk to me at all, said her mother. Look out of the window and then write down your thoughts about everything you see. Susie could not help laughing. It seemed such a funny thing to be doing. As she looked out, she first saw the western sky and some bright sunset clouds. Oh, Mother, she exclaimed, what a splendid sunset. Don't talk, said her mother, but write. Well, I'll write about the sunset then, said she, and the pencil began to move rapidly across the paper. In a few moments she said, Mother, shall I read you what I have written? No, not now, answered the mother. I'm going into the dining room. You may sit and write until I return. Now here is where some of the story has been faded out or torn out. Somehow the page got stuck or something, so there's a few words missing, so I'm going to guess what it is. As Susie went on writing, she became very much interested in her occupation and, for a time, forgot all about the dreaded composition. I think that's what it says. She wrote about the sunset clouds, the appearance of the distant hills, the trees, the river, the garden with its gay flowers, and the birds flying past the window. Just as she had reached the bottom of the page, now this was written in probably 1836. Just as she had reached the bottom of the page, her mother came in. Well, Susie, said she, with a smile, how does that composition come on? We probably would have said, how's that composition coming? Composition, exclaimed Susie. You told me not to think about my composition, and I have not thought about it once. I have had such a fine time writing about what I could see from the window. See, my descendants are trying to make this into a play. I would love to have this as a play, to see them make all the props and do the stage and have the characters. Mrs. Smith took the paper and read aloud what Susie had written. I am sitting on a low seat at the bay window, one half of which is open, so that I can smell the sweet flowers in the garden. The sky is all bright with sunset. I can see the purple and the pink and golden. I do not believe that anyone on earth has a paint box with such lovely colors in it. I can see one cloud far above the rest that looks like a ship sailing, and the blue sea. I should like to sail on a cloud if it would not make me dizzy. Now, while I have been writing, the clouds have changed in color and form. They are just as beautiful as they were before. The green hills are tipped with light and look as if they were wearing a golden crown. I'll find something here. I can see a river a great way off, and it looks quite still. although I know it is running as fast as it can to get to the ocean. There's a picture here. It's, I guess, what would you call that? Is that the woodblock cutting lithograph or something? I love the pictures, and one time I had a set of these, and of course all the pictures are uncolored, so I let the children color them. We turned it into a coloring book. Isn't that nice? The birds are flying past the window to go home and take care of their little ones. I am glad the birds are not afraid to live in our garden and to build nests in our trees. Our garden is full of flowers, pinks, lilies, and roses. Mother calls this the month of roses. My birthday will come in a week, and we can have all the flowers we wish for wreaths and bouquets. There, Susie, said Mrs. Smith. That is a very nice composition indeed. A composition? Exclaimed Susie. Is that a composition? Yes, my dear, and a very good one, too, replied her mother. When it hasn't even a subject? Asked Susie. We can find one for it, and I do not doubt it will please your teacher as well as it does me. You see, my dear, continued her mother, that is easy enough to write if you have anything interesting to write about. The next morning Susie copied her composition very neatly and started to school with a happy heart, saying as she gave her mother a kiss, Just think how funny it is, dear mother, that I should have written so long a composition without knowing it. Now, I just left these readers around for the children to read if they wanted to, and sometimes I'd read a story out of them, but I didn't use it as a, as a teaching or anything. But my children like to use it the way a teacher would. And so when they teach their children, they go through the words. And so the words were composition, rumpled, themes, request, occupation. And the exercises were, what is a composition? Why was Susie so troubled? Why could she not write about time, temperance, or industry? What did her mother have her do? What did Susie write? Was it a composition? Did she know at the time that it was? What fault did she find with it? Can you give her composition a proper subject? And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about writing your own stuff. You can write your own stuff. You don't have to go through a publisher. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, and just do it for yourself. You don't have to have the world. You don't have to sell it to the world for it to be valid. Now, these were the first things we ever found for homeschooling back in the 80s. It was called the Art Literature Readers, and I believe we got it through a book catalog that came in, and I'm not sure it was for homeschoolers, but the homeschoolers were using it, and so they were called the Art Literature Readers, and there was book 1, book 2, and book 3. Now, I got an idea from this that you might like to use, and what they were is they would take they were only done in black and white, but they were famous paintings that were copyright free, and they put the author put them in this book and then put a poem or some well-known literature that was also copyright free, like songs of the old songs and old here's a picture called Children Sailing Their Boat, and it was painted by a Dutch painter back in the 1800s, and so they just put all this together to make a blend of art, literature, and poetry, and prose, and other things. And so I thought, you could do better than this. You could do your own drawings, your own art, and write your own stories and your own pictures and your own poetry and put the words in it and just do your own. You can make your own. You don't even have to go through all this looking for the non-copyright stuff and the copyright-free literature and putting it in, because it isn't all wholesome and sound like you would do it. For example, there was a couple poems here that I thought nobody would even understand because it referred to so many things that were of the day. And so they teach them also how to look at a picture. How many pictures do you see in this big picture? Which picture do you like the best? Tell what you like the best. What is the little girl's name? And then they even published hymns and showed activities. This, I believe, in color from the 1800s is a little girl knitting, and but you could do better. You know, you could do your own that would be contemporary and more understandable to your people. And I would suggest to everyone, that's what the scrapbooking was all about. You know, they had the fancy papers, and you could record a summer, you'd have a summer scrapbook. You could do your own things, and there's plenty of time to do it now that the world is so messed up. Your home is the only place where things are settled down. So ladies, I hope that this has been in some way valuable to you, and I want to thank you who are sacrificially making contributions to me. I'm putting it to good use. I got a new apron, and last time I got a new teacup, so I'm very, very thankful for that, and it's helping me a lot in my broadcasting, and also very motivating. So I wanted to thank you for that. It's helping me improve my home and live out my own teachings. So ladies, I hope that you get a lot done. Please write down some things that you heard and post to me. Leave me a comment. There aren't any here on the channel, but I'm just parking them here on YouTube while I make them for my posts. And now there are some people that are so dexterous on using their computers that they can actually post their videos straight from their files to their blogs. I haven't been able to do that, but you can go to the link that I provided, and please leave me a comment. Tell me what you have heard. I mean, just go during a quiet time of the day, maybe early, and record something that you have heard. And I think that is very important to become more aware of our senses, which are all blurred out when we participate in that world out there. We should never imagine that what's out there, that it has something for us or for our children. We try as much as we can to provide whatever we need for ourselves, from education to entertainment to self-development to exercise to food. Try as much as we can to become independent of it and to do it ourselves and make home living beautiful. So ladies, I will talk to you next time. God bless.